Is Megan, and at 42 years old, I've finally found peace in my life. It wasn't easy getting here, especially after losing Tom, my husband, to cancer 3 years ago. We were together for 15 years, and I still catch myself reaching for his side of the bed some mornings. Tom left me everything, our big house in the suburbs and about $700,000 in savings and investments. I know it sounds like a lot, but I'd trade every penny to have him back. Still, I've made a comfortable life for myself. I work as an HR manager at a tech company downtown, and I've learned to enjoy my own company. My parents, on the other hand, think my life is empty. Mom calls it wasting away, and Dad nods along with whatever she says. They've been married for 45 years and can't understand why I haven't remarried. You're still young enough to find someone, Mom says at least once during every visit. And it's not too late to have children, you know, there are options these days. I visit them once a month, always on a Sunday. It's a 2-hour drive that I've come to dread. The minute I walk through their door, the lectures begin. Megan, I ran into Susan Williams at Bridge Club, Mom will say, her voice dripping with forced casualness. Her son David is divorced now. He's an accountant, you know. What Mom doesn't mention is that David Williams still lives in his mother's basement at 39 and has been between jobs for the past 3 years. I know all about these sons of Mom's friends. They're looking for a meal ticket, not a wife. Thanks, Mom, but I'm not interested in dating right now, is my standard response. Last Sunday's visit started like all the others. I arrived at noon, helped Mom with lunch, and braced myself for the inevitable relationship inquisition. But something was different this time. They didn't mention David Williams or any other eligible bachelor. Instead, they were unusually quiet during lunch. Is everything okay? I finally asked, suspicious of the peace. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Well, Mom said, carefully folding her napkin, we're worried about your brother. That got my attention. Jake is 35, 7 years younger than me. Unlike me, Jake had followed the traditional path, married Vanessa 3 years ago. My parents adored Vanessa from day one. She was pretty, polite, and most importantly, wanted a big family. What about Jake? I asked. He lost his job, Dad said, the company downsized, and he was one of the first to go. And now he and Vanessa can't afford their rent. They're going to be evicted at the end of the month. I nodded slowly, already sensing where this conversation was headed. They need a place to stay, Mom added, her tone shifting from concern to demanding. Just until Jake finds another job and they save enough for a new apartment. I sighed, Jake's a bit chaotic, Mom, you know that. And I'm used to living alone. He's your brother, Mom said sharply, family helps family. And Vanessa is such a lovely girl, she'll help around the house. They won't be any trouble. I doubted that. Jake had always been the golden child, but he was also impulsive and disorganized. Even as a kid, his room looked like a tornado had hit it. And while Vanessa seemed nice enough from our limited interactions at family gatherings, I didn't know her well. How long would they need to stay? I asked. Just a few months, Mom insisted, 3 at most. Jake has some promising leads already. I doubted that too. The pharmaceutical industry had been laying people off left and right. Please, Megan, Mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. We'd take them in ourselves, but you know our place is too small. Their 2-bedroom condo was indeed too small for 4 adults. And my house did have plenty of space. After an hour of guilt trips and promises that Jake and Vanessa would be perfect house guests, I reluctantly agreed. Fine, they can stay with me temporarily. But we need to set some ground rules. Mom's face lit up with relief. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Jake will be so grateful, I'll call him right now. As Mom rushed to the phone, Dad patted my shoulder, that's my girl. Jake's lucky to have a sister like you. I smiled weakly, already regretting my decision. But how bad could it be? A few months with my brother and his wife, I could handle that, right? A week later, Jake and Vanessa arrived at my doorstep with 4 suitcases and hopeful smiles. Sis, Jake hugged me tight, his familiar cologne bringing back childhood memories. Thank you so much for this. We promise we won't be a burden. Vanessa hung back slightly, her blonde hair pulled into a neat ponytail. We can't thank you enough, Megan. This means the world to us. She seemed genuinely grateful, her voice soft and sincere. I showed them to the guest bedroom on the first floor. Make yourselves at home, I said, handing Jake a set of keys. I've cleared some space in the kitchen cabinets for your stuff. This is so generous of you, Vanessa said, looking around. I'd love to help out while we're here. I can cook and clean, it's the least I can do. That would be great, I said, feeling slightly relieved. Maybe this arrangement would work out after all. I usually get home around 6, and I'm not much of a cook. Don't worry about a thing, Vanessa smiled. I'll take care of dinner every night. We worked out a simple arrangement. I would buy groceries for all of us, and they would handle cooking and cleaning until they found jobs. I also asked them to be mindful of utilities. Tom and I had installed smart thermostats and LED lighting throughout the house to keep bills reasonable, and I wanted to keep it that way. The first few weeks were surprisingly pleasant. I'd come home to delicious home-cooked meals, Vanessa was an excellent cook, and a clean house. Jake spent his days job hunting, and Vanessa kept everything running smoothly. I even started to enjoy having company around after years of living alone. About a month into our living arrangement, I noticed things starting to change. The hot dinners waiting for me when I got home became less frequent. The house wasn't as tidy as before. One Tuesday, I came home to find the kitchen untouched since breakfast, dishes still in the sink. I made myself a sandwich and sat down to eat alone. Around 7:30, Jake and Vanessa finally came home. Oh, you already ate, Vanessa said, barely glancing at me as she dropped her shopping bags on the counter. Yeah, I figured you guys were busy, I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. Everything okay? Jake opened the fridge and grabbed a beer, just running some errands. I noticed Vanessa's bags were from high-end stores I couldn't afford to shop at regularly, even with my comfortable salary. I wondered how they were affording shopping sprees when they couldn't pay rent. The next evening was similar, no dinner prepared, and the house a mess. When they finally showed up, I decided to ask directly. I thought we had an agreement about dinner and keeping the place clean, I said as I microwaved leftovers. Vanessa sighed dramatically, I've been super busy lately. I'm starting a business with some friends. We've been meeting here during the day to plan everything. Here? You've been having people over to my house, I felt a flash of annoyance. It's just a few friends, Vanessa shrugged, we needed somewhere to meet. I put down my fork, Vanessa, this is my house. I don't know these people. I'm not comfortable with strangers being here when I'm not home. They're not strangers, they're my friends, she snapped. They're strangers to me, I countered. If you want to meet with them, you should go to a coffee shop or one of their houses. Vanessa stared at me for a moment, then threw her fork onto her plate with a clatter. She pushed back from the table and stormed off to their bedroom. Jake glared at me, way to go, sis. She's trying to build something here. Jake, I'm not trying to be difficult, but... He didn't wait for me to finish, just got up and followed his wife. After that night, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Vanessa stopped acknowledging me altogether, no good morning, no how was your day, nothing. She also stopped cooking for me entirely. I'd come home to find evidence that they'd eaten, take out containers or dirty pans, but nothing left for me. I went back to preparing my own meals, just as I had before they moved in. 2 months into their stay, I was beginning to feel like a stranger in my own home. One evening, I found them sprawled on my living room couch, watching TV and sharing a large pizza. They didn't offer me any. I decided it was time for another conversation. Hey guys, quick question, how's the job hunt going? Jake barely looked away from the TV. Oh, you know, making progress. What does that mean? I pressed. He shrugged. I've had a few interviews, nothing solid yet. Vanessa didn't even pretend to acknowledge me. It's been 2 months, I reminded them. When you moved in, we talked about this being temporary. We'll let you know when we have news, Jake said dismissively, turning back to the TV. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' house for our monthly visit. Jake and Vanessa had declined to join me. I was actually relieved. I needed to talk to my parents alone. When I arrived, Mom hugged me tightly. "How's everything going with Jake and Vanessa?" "That's what I wanted to talk to you about," I started. Before I could continue, Mom launched into her concerns. "Jake says you've been pressuring them about finding jobs. He says you treat them like they're taking advantage of you." I was stunned. "What?" I barely mentioned it. "I just asked how the search was going." "He says you're making them feel unwelcome," Dad added. "That's not like you, Megan. They promised to help around the house, and Vanessa stopped doing that weeks ago," I explained. "And she's been inviting people over without asking me." Mom shook her head. "They're going through a difficult time, Megan. You need to be more understanding." "Understanding? They're living in my house rent-free, and I'm buying all their food." I could feel my frustration building. "They're family," Dad said firmly. "Family supports each other." I realized there was no point arguing. My parents had already decided I was in the wrong. I changed the subject, and we had an uncomfortable dinner before I headed home. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in my spot. Confused, I parked on the street and went inside. The moment I opened the door, I saw several large suitcases in the hallway. Voices came from the living room, more than just Jake and Vanessa's. I walked in to find an older couple sitting on my couch. I recognized them as Vanessa's parents, Robert and Linda, though we'd only met a few times at family gatherings. Everyone fell silent when I entered. "Megan," Jake said with forced enthusiasm, "look who's visiting." I pasted on a smile. "Hello, Robert, Linda, nice to see you." Linda nodded stiffly. "Megan." "Jake, can I talk to you for a minute?" I kept my voice pleasant, though inside I was seething. Jake followed me upstairs to my home office. "What's going on?" I asked once the door was closed. "Why are Vanessa's parents here with suitcases?" Jake ran a hand through his hair nervously. "They're just visiting for a week. They're on their way to Arizona to see Vanessa's brother." "And you didn't think to ask me before inviting them to stay in my house?" I could hear my voice rising. "Please, Megan," Jake begged, "it's just for a week. They'll be gone before you know it." I took a deep breath. This is exactly what I was talking about, Jake. This is my house. You can't just invite people to stay here without asking me. "I know, I'm sorry," he said, "but they're already here." "What do you want me to do, send them to a hotel?" I stared at Jake's pleading face and felt myself caving, again. "Fine, 1 week, but that's it." Jake's face lit up. "Thanks, sis, you're the best." As we went back downstairs, I noticed Vanessa had made dinner. Suddenly, she was being helpful again, now that her parents were here. We all sat down for dinner, and I tried to be polite despite my irritation. "So, Megan," Linda, Vanessa's mother, began, "this is quite a lovely home. How many bedrooms did you say it has?" "4, I replied between bites. "And you live here all alone, Robert?" her father asked. "Yes, Tom left me everything when he passed." I didn't like discussing my finances with people I barely knew. "Such a large house for just one person," Linda remarked. "How do you manage the upkeep?" "I manage fine," I said shortly. Linda exchanged a look with Robert. "You know, if I had a house this size, I'd probably sell it. Too much space for one person, and the money could help other family members." I nearly choked on my water. "Excuse me?" "I mean, you could sell this place, give half to your brother so he and Vanessa could buy their own home, and you could get something more appropriate for your situation." The audacity left me speechless for a moment. Jake looked uncomfortable, staring at his plate. "When you have a house like this of your own," I finally said to Linda, keeping my voice level, "you're welcome to sell it and give the money to your children. This is my home, and I have no plans to sell it." An awkward silence fell over the table. Linda pursed her lips, and Vanessa shot me a venomous look. We finished dinner with minimal conversation. The next week was excruciating. Every time I entered a room, conversation stopped abruptly. Linda and Robert asked invasive questions about my finances, my job, and my personal life. They treated my home like a hotel, leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor and dishes in the sink. I counted down the days until they would leave. Friday couldn't come fast enough. When Friday finally arrived, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders as I drove home from work. Soon, it would be just me, Jake, and Vanessa again, which was still not ideal, but better than having Vanessa's parents there too. As I turned onto my street, I rehearsed what I would say to Jake. It was time for a serious conversation about their job search and moving out timeline. 3 months had passed, and they showed no signs of leaving. I pulled into my driveway and walked to my front door. When I opened it, I froze. Several of my suitcases were sitting in the hallway. Confused, I opened one. Inside were my clothes, hastily folded and crammed in. My toiletries were stuffed in a side pocket. I heard voices from the living room and walked in, my heart pounding. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents were huddled together, looking at what appeared to be a guest list. "What's going on?" I said loudly. "Why are my things packed?" They exchanged glances, no one spoke for a moment. Finally, Vanessa shrugged. "We're planning my parents' 35th anniversary party. Their relatives are coming here tomorrow." Here, in my house? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "It's just for the weekend," Jake said weakly. "And where am I supposed to go?" I demanded. "We thought you could stay at a hotel," Vanessa said casually. "Or with your parents, we need the space for the guests." I stared at them, dumbfounded. They had packed my belongings and planned to kick me out of my own house for a party I hadn't even been told about. "This is my house," I said slowly, my voice shaking with anger. "You don't get to decide who stays here or who leaves. If anyone's going to a hotel, it's your relatives." "Don't be ridiculous," Linda scoffed. "We can't ask family to stay at a hotel." "But you can ask me to leave my own home?" I was incredulous. "It's just for one weekend," Vanessa said dismissively. "Don't be so selfish." "Selfish?" I nearly shouted the word. "I've let you live here rent-free for 3 months. I bought your groceries, paid all the utilities, and put up with your complete lack of respect for my home and privacy." "You're being dramatic," Vanessa rolled her eyes. "I want your parents out of my house by tomorrow," I said firmly. "And there will be no party here." Linda gasped. "You can't do that. We've already invited everyone." "Watch me," I said coldly. I turned to Jake. "I expected better from you." Jake at least had the decency to look ashamed, but he said nothing in my defense. I went upstairs to my bedroom, slammed the door, and called my mother. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Mom," I said when she answered, "Jake and Vanessa are trying to throw me out of my own house for the weekend so Vanessa's parents can have an anniversary party here." There was a pause. "Jake mentioned something about a small gathering," she said carefully. "You knew about this?" I couldn't believe it. "Well, yes, it seemed reasonable to me." "It's just for one weekend, Megan." I felt like I'd been slapped. "It's my house, Mom. They didn't even ask me." "Family helps family," she repeated her familiar refrain. "Why don't you stay with us for the weekend? It would give you a break from all the tension." In that moment, I realized my parents were complicit in this whole situation. They had known all along and approved of Jake and Vanessa's behavior. "I have to go," I said and hung up. I sat on my bed, trying to process what was happening. My own family was trying to take over my home, and my parents were supporting them. I felt betrayed and angry, but mostly, I felt determined. I woke up early Saturday morning with a clear head and a plan. I listened carefully and heard nothing. The house was silent. I checked my phone, 7:15 a.m., perfect. I peeked out my bedroom door. The hallway was empty. I tiptoed downstairs and confirmed what I'd hoped. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents had gone shopping for party supplies. This was my chance. Last night, after our confrontation, I'd pretended to give in. I went downstairs, put on a fake smile, and told them they were right. I was being selfish. I should let them have their party. My mother had called back, and I told her I'd be staying with them for the weekend after all. Jake looked relieved, Vanessa seemed smug, and her parents were triumphant. They believed they'd won, little did they know. As soon as they left this morning, I sprang into action. I called a 24-hour locksmith I'd found online last night. He promised to be at my house within the hour. While I waited, I gathered all of Jake and Vanessa's belongings. Their clothes, toiletries, shoes, everything. I did the same with Linda and Robert's things. I packed them all neatly into their suitcases and duffel bags. The locksmith arrived at 8:30 a.m. By 10 a.m., every lock in my house had been changed. I paid Mike, thanked him profusely, and dragged all the suitcases outside onto the front lawn. Then I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and waited. Around noon, a car pulled into my driveway. Jake, Vanessa, and her parents got out, arms full of grocery bags and party decorations. They saw the suitcases immediately. Confusion crossed their faces as they approached the front door. I heard Jake's key in the lock, followed by the sound of him jiggling it when it didn't work. Then came the knocking. "Megan, the key isn't working," Jake called through the door. I walked to the door but didn't open it. "That's because I changed the locks." There was a stunned silence, then Vanessa's voice, "What?" "Open the door right now." "No," I said firmly, "I want all of you off my property." "You can't do this," Linda shrieked. "Our party is tonight, people are coming." "You should have thought about that before trying to throw me out of my own house," I replied calmly. Jake's voice turned pleading, "Megan, come on, we can talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. You've taken advantage of my generosity for months. You've disrespected me in my own home. And now you've tried to force me out so you can throw a party I never approved of. We're done talking." Vanessa started pounding on the door. "You can't do this. Let us in right now or I'll call the police." "Go ahead," I said. "I'll explain how you've been squatting in my home and refusing to leave when asked. I'm sure they'll be very interested." Jake tried a different approach. "Sis, please. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You've had 3 months to figure it out, time's up." Linda was wailing now about her ruined anniversary. Robert was trying to calm her down. Vanessa had moved from pounding on the door to kicking it. "If you damage my property, I will call the police," I warned her. The kicking stopped. "Mom and Dad are going to hear about this," Jake threatened. "I'm sure they will," I replied. "Now please leave before I call the authorities." There was more arguing, pleading, and threatening, but I stood firm. Eventually, I heard them loading their suitcases into their cars. I watched through the window as they drove away, Jake and Vanessa in one car, Linda and Robert in another. As predicted, my phone started ringing almost immediately. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. Then came a barrage of text messages. "Mom, what have you done? Jake says you threw them out." "Dad, call us immediately, young lady." I turned off my phone, made myself another cup of tea, and sat in the peaceful quiet of my home for the first time in months. The messages kept coming over the next few days. My parents called and texted incessantly. Their messages grew increasingly angry, calling me cruel, selfish, and heartless. Jake sent a long text saying he was cutting ties with me forever. I didn't respond to any of them. After a week, I finally turned my phone back on for good. The messages had slowed to a trickle. I heard through my cousin Emily that Jake and Vanessa had moved in with my parents. Apparently, my parents' tune changed quickly when they had to deal with Jake and Vanessa's entitled behavior firsthand. Emily told me my parents had given Jake and Vanessa an ultimatum: find jobs within 2 months and save enough for their own place, or they'd have to leave. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. It's been a month since I changed my locks. My parents still aren't speaking to me, and honestly, I'm okay with that. The silence has been healing. No more lectures about my life choices, no more pushing me to date men I'm not interested in, no more guilt trips about not having children. I've rediscovered the peace of my home. I've reclaimed my space and my boundaries. Some might call me selfish for not letting my family walk all over me, but I call it self-respect. Maybe someday we'll reconcile. Maybe my parents will realize that their golden child isn't so golden after all. Maybe Jake will grow up and take responsibility for his own life instead of expecting handouts. Maybe Vanessa will learn that family isn't a resource to be exploited. Or maybe not. Either way, I'm done being the family doormat. Last weekend, I repainted the guest bedroom, a bright, cheerful yellow that makes me smile every time I pass by. I've started hosting dinner parties for my friends, something I'd stopped doing when Jake and Vanessa moved in. I'm living my life on my terms. It may not be the life my parents envisioned for me, no husband, no children, just me in my too big house, but it's my life. And after standing up for myself, after finally setting boundaries that even my family couldn't cross, I'm proud of it.